Hey guys, welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Today we're going to be exploring the third world you visit in the game. The Wizard101 equivalent of early 1900s England, Marleybone. A world that, in doing some research, has some crazy in-depth lore, pretty much following dogs through history as if they were humans in our world. Starting from them being tribesmen, to a war between cats and dogs led by a Robert E. Leary, because of the, no joke, discrimination with cats, to a renaissance of art and science, to their current golden age where Marleybone is considered the figurehead of science in the spiral, as well as one of the strongest military empires in having colonized and explored many worlds in the spiral. Marleybone is pretty much the world that most resembles our real-life world. Even magic is pushed aside in favor of science, and not many citizens utilize it. However, every single burglar and spider on the rooftop knows some magic, but we'll just ignore that. We'll get more into the lore and story in a little bit, but how about I show you around this world a little bit, and explore one of the most nostalgic worlds for me personally. You first enter this world through the main portal hub, like most worlds, but this world's hub is a church. Wolfminster Abbey, which in itself is kind of wild, because not only does this suggest Marleybone has its own version of Christianity, I mean it straight up confirmed it, but apparently they have their own version of the devil and hell, which, wow, wonder if that's a world we'll explore later. But also, get this, their version of a cross is a fire hydrant, which is just perfect. Well, anyways, making your way out of the church, you are greeted with the central commons area of this world, Regent Square. This is where you got all your basic shops that are kind of useless, as well as the mini-game fountain this time, and also our boy Zeke and his wife Eloise. This time you lost a bunch of tiny stray cats, which their existence is kind of weird. They're very small, but are bipedal like the rest of the cats in this world. But it doesn't seem like they're children, they're just really small hobos. Why are they so small? And what are you gonna do with them, Zeke? Kinda weird. But yeah, Regent Square connects to all three central zones of the world. Well, I guess it's 4, but the other one is more of like DLC. This zone right here has a very strange and interesting feel to it. Just exploring these empty alleyways on a realm with no players on it, it just feels quiet. It really captures some liminal space vibes, as well as showing off that early 2000s feel. And also, I have to acknowledge the music of this world. It is just phenomenal. Not to say all the other music isn't. This game's got a lot of good soundtracks, but here it captures old-timey England perfectly and has that whimsical Harry Potter vibe to it. This world's vibe just hits, you know? Alright, let's see the first actual zone you go to progress in this game. First place you're sent to is Dmore Station, a station that holds the main transportation of the world. Air balloon cars. Definitely no magic involved, all science. Other than being the connector to the first few questing zones, Dmore Station actually has a couple other noteworthy things in it. First of which is another secret shop, much like the one in Crocotopia, but this one doesn't involve a certain time of day to access it. And much like the one in Croc, this one houses another useless spell trainer that only gives minion spells. Great, at least you can buy cat thug pets. They're just terrible pets, but before when pets were only aesthetics, I had one rolling around with me. They just had that eat shit and die vibe that I like so much. This station also has the most important character in Marleybone, and an icon not just for the wizard world, but for our world too. Sherlock Bones. Yes sir. This is the guy that pretty much gives you the mainline quest for Marleybone. The first place he sends you is Hyde Park, the first area with enemies walking around. Mostly rat and cat thugs. You see, cats and rats cause crimes in Marleybone because they are racially profiled and discriminated against. Fun Marleybone fact, only dogs can be part of the parliament. Interesting. Anyway, Hyde Park is the first area that shows off the copy and paste scenery that plagues most of the first few worlds. This time about 90% of Marleybone takes place on these rooftops that pretty much look identical. The only unique area here is the little park area, which is kind of strange to have on a rooftop. I don't know, this generic area ends with a generic boss fight with a generic golem named Gearhead. This leads into the next area, Chelsea Court, which pretty much looks just like the last area. Only real difference is this tower in the middle with the big boss of the area, another generic golem named Potbelly. The The main bad guys of this world are these cat thugs, but so far the big bosses are these golems. Very underwhelming. Anyways, this leads into the first big dungeon of Marleybone, the Ironworks. A pretty long dungeon, which Marleybone has a few just like it. This area has few stops where you gotta solve a couple puzzles and a giant warehouse type area that's a little unique, ending in a boss fight with the first major cat thug boss, Pops O'Leary. Bashing in his skull pretty much completes Dmore Station in the first third of Marleybone. There's one more area in this station though. It's a dungeon called Kingston Park. It's a side dungeon that is meant to be a challenge dungeon for the world. The first few worlds had dungeons just like this. It's like the Sunken City in Wizard City, where they break the rules a little bit, where enemies have 3 in a fight instead of 2, like the usual, and they can pull you from the sidewalk, which is pretty annoying. Back in the day it was a fun challenge, but the power creep made it a breeze nowadays. It's just super long, and there's no good rewards from it, so honestly it's not even worth your time to do. So with that aside, we can move on to the second third of Marleybone, Scotland Yard. You get to go and explore the little main jail room, but of course it's only a segue to get to the rooftop. However, I'd rather be up there than in the same room as this creepy mime bastard. You need to try and free him for a side quest, but I like to not do that. He definitely committed those crimes, and I hope he never escapes. Nah, I'd rather be on the roof with someone that I'd actually like to get out of prison. This dude right here. Now this brings up another topic we need to talk about. Sure, dogs are the top citizens in this world, and cats and rats are discriminated against, but can we talk about the frogs? It's kind of weird that these frog people only live in Marleybone. This is their home. And yet the only frogs we see are janitors or chimney sweeps. It's kind of fucked up. Yeah, sure, cats got it bad too, but they don't got a frog bad. Only other frog we see that's not a janitor or something like that is just physically and probably mentally fucked up, and he lives with a dude that does illegal experiments.
Me Grunk. I watch my master build clockworks. I can do the same for you.
If the frogs want to start a revolution, I'd probably be on their side. Anyways, let's get back on track. The roof leads to the next area, which honestly is one of the shortest areas too, as well as being one of the most unique looking zones in the whole world, Newgate Prison. Here, all you really do is track down the big villain of the world that is escaping prison, the rival to Sherlock Bones. Can you guess his name? Meowie Yardy. Yup. But he's not alone. He gets busted out by the big villain of the whole first arc, Malastare. You see, Malastare needs the greatest thief in Marleybone to steal the Croconomicon from the Royal Museum. And Malastare, the almighty great and powerful wizard, can't do it because the Marleybonians have magic-proof the Royal Museum somehow. The Croconomicon is the reason we had to go to Crocotopia and now Marleybone. And Malastare wants it for the forbidden necromancy magic that it holds. So the gist of this world, pretty much, is we're trying to get the Croconomicon back before Malastare. But Malastare breaks Meowiarty out of prison, and the area ends with one boss battle against the Agony Wraith, which may or may not be a resurrected Lord Nightshade from Wizard City, but that might just be my headcanon. The next area you go on to is Knight's Court, an even more repetitive area than most, where it's pretty much just like any other area in this world, but with no special looking scenery other than the multiple little towers scattered around, but really it's pretty much the same shit. Oh, and here you have to fight the same boss twice. Jaquez the Scratcher? Probably not how you pronounce it. I'm pretty sure you pronounce it differently, but that's how I always read it. You fight him in the beginning and the end of the zone. This then leads into the big dungeon of the area and my favorite zone in Marleybone, Katzenstein's Lab. Yeah, pretty much an area with the Frankenstein theme. Here you pretty much do the usual dungeon routine, kill some grunts, solve some puzzles, and make your way to the one unique area in the zone. The castle of Dr. Katzenstein. The guy that's been making all these rampant golems you've been fighting, I guess. After defeating him, and yes, not killing him, just defeating him because he actually goes to jail after this, you then make your own golem out of his materials, thus leading you to the final third of the world. And like Crocotopia, this final third is a lot shorter than the rest of the world. This next and final area is the Royal Museum, where the Croconomicon is held. This area is home to 3 dungeons, 2 medium-sized dungeons, and one really long tower that's always a bitch to get through, known as Big Ben. But like I said before, you have to get through the first 2 smaller towers before you can take on Big Mama Tower over here. These two towers are called Counterweight West and Counterweight East. These are sections with 3 normal fights and then a boss fight on the top. Nothing too unique. Once you finally get through those, you can enter Big Ben and experience the longest and most tedious tower in the game. It's a 15-floor tower with a bunch of normal fights, some boss fights, and a couple puzzles, and even a secret boss, Spike the Crusher, who you summon by spilling various bottles of milk as you make your way up through the tower.
Did I just hear someone spill some milk? Don't you do that again. Milk is too good to waste.
He's a secret boss I suggest doing since you're already here, and he does drop some decent stuff for the level. After defeating him, you get to the top of the tower and finally face off against Meowie Yardy.
It will be a pleasure to take care of this meddlesome wizard. Once I scratch you off our list, we'll have no one to stop us.
Along with a sub-boss, the Agony Wraith, again. And a random life golem that heals occasionally. Probably the most climactic battle you've had in this game to this point. I like to imagine this battle ends with your wizard just pushing Meowie Yardy out the window, thus concluding Marleybone. However, once you defeat him, Malistaire shows up and takes the Croconomicon anyways.
You again? I don't have time for this. You realize you're too late. With a Croconomicon, I have everything I need to finish what I have started.
Making everything you just went through pretty much just pointless. Great. That's pretty much all of Marleybone, except for that DLC dungeon I mentioned earlier. This world has another area that was added later on with the 4 dungeons expansion I mentioned in the Croc video. Marleybone got one for the wizards of the power level of 40. This area is known as Barkingham Palace. You come here pretty much to save the Queen of England. The 3 separate dungeons here are the State Wing, the Main Hall, and the Rooftop. The Rooftop being by far my favorite area, taking place mostly in a giant blimp where the Queen has been kidnapped by Dr. Jackal, who has a gimmick where he can turn into a monster version of himself called Mr. Hound. Wonder what that's a reference to. But yeah, that's pretty much Marleybone. On a personal note, this is one of my favorite worlds, especially around this time of year, the holiday season. When I was a kid, I was pretty much stuck on this world for years before they added a main quest tracker. I didn't even know there were main quests, so I was just doing shit in Marleybone for the majority of my time. And I would always get my membership around Christmas time, so that's when I was playing the most. So along with that time of the year and the Harry Potter-like music, this world just sends the vibe straight into my little goblin soul. Marleybone is a pretty big key part of my childhood, to be honest, and it always reminds me of Christmas time when I play through it. Well, that pretty much wraps up this world. In the next video, we'll take a look at the next world in the mainline story, Mushu. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for what's next. Peace out, guys, and I hope you have a nasty night. See ya.